Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the surprising, completely dual-edged biological effects that raw onions have on your blood and cellular health. You probably look at an onion as just a simple base for your soups, or maybe just the culprit behind your tears on a cutting board. But today, we're going to totally reframe how you see this staple veggie. We're digging into sources that reveal how the raw onion acts as an incredibly potent biological modifier, one that packs some profound healing properties for your vascular system, but also carries some very real clinical dangers.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the humble onion's secret power, how it heals the vascular system, the blood-thinning danger, the clinical science behind onions and PCOS, and finally, exactly how to eat them right to maximize the benefits.
All right, part 1, the humble onion's secret power. It's time to shift our mindset completely away from culinary uses and start looking at this vegetable through the lens of cellular biology.
So, think about this for a second. What actually happens to your blood just 30 minutes after you eat a raw onion? It's kind of wild to realize that just half an hour after taking a bite, real measurable changes are already happening right inside your bloodstream. You aren't just digesting food here, you are actively modulating your biology.
We really need a total paradigm shift. The onion isn't just some background garnish, it is a rapid-acting cellular modifier. The exact second you take a knife to a raw onion, bam, you're kicking off a chemical reaction. You're breaking down cell walls and releasing these incredibly complex sulfur compounds. And since this biological cascade hits your vascular system in roughly 30 minutes, it absolutely should change how we think about our shopping and cooking habits. We aren't just eating for flavor anymore, we are literally eating for cellular outcomes.
Moving on to part 2, healing the vascular system. Let's break down exactly how these microscopic cellular shifts translate into real physical benefits inside your body. The mechanics here are just absolutely fascinating. The main hero inside your blood vessels is a flavonoid called quercetin. When you eat raw onion, this quercetin immediately gets to work supporting your endothelium, which is that super delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. How does it do it? Well, it ramps up the availability of nitric oxide. You can think of nitric oxide as a biological green light. It signals your blood vessels to just relax and widen out. The end result is better blood flow, improved vascular function, and a lot less strain on your entire cardiovascular system.
But wait. The benefits don't stop at relaxing blood vessels. Remember those sulfur compounds we just talked about? Once they hit your bloodstream, they actively stop your platelets from clumping together. In fact, a massive review of oleum vegetables noted they can drop unnecessary platelet aggregation by up to a staggering 30%. So the key takeaway here is that by keeping those platelets from clumping up when they shouldn't, you are actively dropping your risk for dangerous blockages and blood clots.
Which brings us to part 3, the blood-thinning danger. Because the exact same mechanics that make raw onions a vascular superstar can also turn them into a severe medical liability. Based on some fantastic reporting over at Gizmodo, let's look at the actual chemical culprits causing this: adenosine, allicin, and polysulfides. So adenosine dilates those blood vessels, which is fantastic, unless you're someone who bleeds too much. Then we've got allicin. That's the chemical giving chopped onions and garlic their signature pungent smell. Scientists actually think the plant evolved this as a form of natural pest control to fight off bugs and fungi. And finally, we have polysulfides, those long chains of sulfur that make onions so stinky. The fact that these chemicals actively hack human blood to stop platelets from grouping together, it's honestly just a massive biological coincidence.
And this perfectly illustrates the double-edged sword of the onion. On one hand, reducing clots is a brilliant way to prevent strokes and heart attacks for certain at-risk folks. But on the flip side, we have the medical dangers. If you have hemophilia, a clotting disorder, if you're about to head into surgery, or if you're already taking prescribed blood thinners, this natural antiplatelet effect is incredibly dangerous. In those situations, you absolutely need your blood to be able to thicken and clot. For these individuals, the potent natural blood-thinning power of raw onions, and garlic too for that matter, means these foods basically have to be taken entirely off the plate.
All right, part 4, onions and PCOS, the science. Let's pivot from the cardiovascular system to the endocrine system and look at a really compelling clinical trial.
So, researchers wanted to figure out if the known blood sugar lowering or hypoglycemic effects of onions could actually help patients with polycystic ovary syndrome or PCOS. The setup was super rigorous. They took 53 overweight or obese, non-diabetic patients with PCOS and divided them into 2 groups for an 8-week study. The high onion group, they were eating a hefty dose, 40 to 60 grams of raw red onion twice a single day. Meanwhile, the low onion control group was only eating about 10 to 15 grams twice a day.
The primary goal of this meticulously tracked trial was to find out if eating that much raw red onion could lower insulin resistance markers over 2 months. Specifically, they were looking at HOMA-IR, which basically measures how much insulin your body has to pump out just to keep your blood sugar stable. They wanted to see if this raw onion intervention could really move the needle for these non-diabetic PCOS patients.
But, here is the harsh reality of the scientific method. The expectations didn't exactly match the results. After 8 full weeks of heavy, daily raw red onion consumption, there was no significant improvement in insulin resistance markers for either group. Fasting blood sugar, overall insulin resistance, both remained essentially unchanged. Now, the researchers did point out that because these specific patients were non-diabetic, they might just represent an early stage of metabolic change that simply doesn't respond to an onion intervention the way a fully diabetic model might.
But hold on, because there was a totally fascinating clinical twist here. Over those 8 weeks, the high onion group experienced a really intriguing, albeit statistically non-significant, bump in the occurrence of menstruation. It actually jumped from 41.7% at baseline up to 58.3% by the end of the study. The low onion group, barely any change at all. So while raw red onions didn't magically cure insulin resistance, this strongly suggests they might have a clinically important effect on restoring menstrual cycles in PCOS patients. It points to some deeper mechanisms at play way beyond just insulin regulation.
And finally, part 5, how to eat them right. So, if you're a healthy viewer looking to maximize these biological modifiers without messing with any medications, how should you actually be eating them?
To get the absolute most out of your onions, you've got to follow these 4 science-backed rules. Number 1, eat them raw. Applying heat actually breaks down both the quercetin and those powerful sulfur compounds. If you're cooking a hot meal, just add the raw onion at the very end as a topping. Number 2, always reach for red or yellow onions over white. The deeper the color, the higher the quercetin content. Simple as that. Number 3, pair your raw onion with a healthy fat, something like olive oil. Quercetin is fat-soluble, which means the oil dramatically boosts your body's ability to actually absorb it. And rule 4, this is a big one. Once you chop that onion, leave it alone. Let it sit on the cutting board for about 10 minutes. That little resting window gives the enzymes time to fully activate all those incredible sulfur-related compounds before you eat them.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. How is this cellular knowledge going to change your next trip to the grocery store? We've seen today that the foods we eat are so much more than just calories and flavor profiles. They are complex chemical codes dictating our vascular width, platelet aggregation, and even endocrine cycles. The next time you chop up a raw red onion and let it sit for 10 minutes, just think about the profound microscopic effects you are about to unleash in your bloodstream. It really begs the question, what other secret superpowers might your everyday groceries be hiding? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring the science in your everyday life.